is Veterans Day 2013. Welcome Rotarians, military veterans, and guests to the 2013 annual Southwest Metro Rotary Veterans Day celebration. This is the year when we engage Rotary, change lives. My name is Diane Kirby, and I am the District Governor for District 5950. I am also a member of the Bloomington Noon Rotary Club, which this year coordinated this year's event with the help of Dave Wallach, incoming president for the Bloomington Rotary Club. Let's give him a round of applause, Dave. I want to thank you for joining us for this special event. It is a pleasure to come together today to enjoy the sponsorship and participation of the 8 Rotary Clubs from Area 3 of the Southwest Metro area. I'm going to announce each of those clubs, so please give a cheer when your club's name is called. And we are going to start with Bloomington Daymakers. Bloomington Daymakers. That was a little weak. All right, Bloomington Noon. Let's see if you can do a little better than that. Eden Prairie AM. Eden Prairie Noon. Yay. Edina. Edina Morningside. Richfield. And South Metro Minneapolis Evenings. Yay. And now it is my privilege to introduce our MC for today's program, Boyd Hubert of Care 11 TV. Yay! Yay! Boyd got his start in broadcasting as a 16-year-old announcer in his hometown radio station, WEVR in River Falls, Wisconsin. Boyd majored in journalism and political science at the University of Wisconsin, River Falls, and began his television career in 1984 at WSAW-TV in Wausau. Boyd worked at 2 more TV stations, KETV in Omaha and WITI in Milwaukee, before joining Care 11 in 1996. In 2013, Boyd was honored with 2 National Edward R. Murrow Awards for his writing and feature reporting, his 9th and 10th National Murrow Awards. He was also the recipient of the 2011 National Sigma Delta Chi Award for feature reporting, his 3rd such award. In 2007, Boyd was awarded a National Emmy for feature reporting. Now, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our MC today, Boyd Hubert.
Thanks, Diane. Thank you so much for having me here today. Such an honor to be with all of you, especially our veterans on this important day for us and for our nation. This is the one day that we designate each year to honor the men and women who have served in our military service, many of them here with us today. Although this day is set aside to honor veterans, it is important to keep the men and women who are currently serving in our military all over the world in our thoughts and prayers as well. We owe our soldiers so much, both those past and present. We owe them a sincere debt of gratitude. They truly embody the Rotary motto, service above self. Please join me in standing for the presentation of the colors, the Pledge of Allegiance, National Anthem, and the invocation.
Colors, hold. Color bearers, prepare to post colors. Forward, march. Colors, post. Please stand, arms.
Please remain standing as Tim Murphy, District Governor nominee for Rotary District 5950, leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tim. At this time, the South Metro Rotary Brass, under the direction of Mary Brindle, president of the Edina Morningside Rotary Club, will lead us in the singing of our national anthem. We are pleased to have the Reverend Dr. Arthur Rauner Jr. with us to deliver our invocation today. Dr. Rauner is founder of the Pilgrim Center for Reconciliation, 18 years leading healing retreats in the conflict countries of Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, northern Uganda, and western Kenya. He returns to those countries for 4 weeks this January. He previously served as senior minister at Colonial Church of Edina for 32 years. Reverend Rauner.
Will you join me, please, in prayer? O God of the nations, and of all people, and all continents and countries, you are our Father, and we belong to you. You gave us life, each one, and we cherish it and thank you for the precious gift of each day. We cherish, too, the lives of all your children, each precious to you. We grieve for the angers of the heart that turn nations and us ourselves against each other. We want to be people of peace. We want swords to be beaten into plowshares. We do not want to have a world at war. But in the face of injustice and cruelty and attack and genocide, we have taken up arms to try to end injustice and still the horrors of conflict. And so we have sent our young men and women into fields far from home to fight for a peace that seems never quite to come. How brave are the young hearts that have taken up the cause and crossed this world to give their lives for what we saw as right. Keep safe this homeland they have protected, and the wounded hearts and bodies so many of them have brought home in pain. You are the great physician. We pray you to lay your healing hands upon them all. May our arms reach wide to welcome them. May our hearts honor them, and our lives be a sign of gratitude for what they have given us. Thank you for this day of honor when we can come together to ask your blessing on our country, and especially on these who gave so much so that this land we love still lives. And bless these Rotarians who work so faithfully for the healing and unity and bringing of peace to the world. We pray humbly in the name of the one who said, "Peace be unto you," and to call the peacemakers blessed. Amen.
We'd like to recognize several people who are with us today. First, the presidents of the Southwest Metro Rotary Clubs. Please hold your applause until the introductions are complete, but we would like you all to stand and be recognized. From the Bloomington Daymakers Club, Mike Mellon. From the Bloomington Noon, Chris Ganera. The Eden Prairie AM, Craig Blixrud. Eden Prairie Noon, John Steinlicht. Edina Morningside, Mary Brindle. Edina Noon, Steve Slice. Richfield, Marlene Evenson. And South Metro Minneapolis Evening, Richard Crabb. Our music today is being presented by the Southwest Metro Rotary Brass, consisting of Brent Turner and Todd Tangi on trumpet, Mary Brindle on horn, Ken Zeman on trombone, and John Rotenberry on tuba. We also have with us today Rotary District 5950 officials. Dan Kirby, who you've already met, Bloomington District Governor. Jim Nelson, Minneapolis City of Lakes District Governor-elect. Tim Murphy, Edina District Governor nominee. And Mark Hegstrom, Edina Morningside District Governor designee. Also with us today, past Rotary District Governor Dan Hallberg from the Edina Noon Club. We are thrilled today to be honoring those members of the armed services, both active and retired, who have joined us here today. I'd ask that all active or veteran military personnel please stand so that we may recognize you and thank you for your service. Thank you so much. We are also fortunate that some of our local and state elected officials are present here today, and we'd ask you also to stand and be recognized. Bloomington Mayor Gene Winstead, Edina Mayor Jim Hovland, Edina City Council Member Joni Bennett, Edina City Council Member Mary Brindle, and Bloomington School Board Member Lyle Ablin. We have some state representatives here today. State Senator from District 56, Dan Hall. State Senator District 49, Melissa Franzen. State Senator District 48, David Hahn. And Council Member and candidate for U.S. Senate, Chris Dahlberg. State Representative Yvonne Seltzer. State Representative Ron Earhart. And State Representative Paul Rosenthal. And I have an oversight. I forgot to mention that we also have a Bloomington City Council member here present today that we want to recognize.
State representative here too.
Oh, who did I leave out? Well, let me mention Karin Nordstrom from the Bloomington City Council. And who have I missed over here?
Jennifer Loon.
Jennifer? Anyone else that I've missed? At this time, it's our treat to welcome back the Southwest Metro Rotary Brass, who will perform a medley of the service anthems as a tribute to our veterans. If you are a veteran or active duty military, please stand when the anthem of your service is played. That was inspiring. Beautiful. Thank you. Now it's my distinct pleasure to bring Bloomington Mayor Gene Winstead to the podium to introduce our keynote speaker. Gene was elected to his first term as Mayor of Bloomington in 1999 and is now serving his fourth term and 14th year as mayor. This is a man with a thick skin. He's been a member of the Bloomington City Council since his appointment in 1995. In addition to his work at the City Council, Mayor Winstead is currently serving on a number of Bloomington-related boards and community service organizations. Please welcoming the mayor.
Well, thank you. And it is really great to be here today, really to welcome you to Bloomington, but more specifically, all the Rotary Clubs from this region, from this area, coming together here at this very wonderful and annual event that I think really serves a wonderful purpose. It keeps in our minds our veterans, and it's great to see them here being recognized today also. But I am here, and it's an honor to recognize and introduce Brigadier General Dennis Schulstead. In addition to being a retired general from the Air Force Reserve, General Schulstead served as a Minneapolis City Council member for 22 years, and that's actually where I first met Denny. And he's a former national president of the University of Minnesota Alumni Association, ran across him again at that position, and chaired the committee that planned the Veteran Tribute Wall at the Gopher Football Stadium. He is also founder and board member of the Minnesota Military Appreciation Fund that has raised over $12 million to fund grants to all Minnesota military members. And General Schulstead, with his wife Pam, makes his home in Edina, and guess what? He's a member of the Edina Rotary Club. So I can at this time present General Schulstead.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Gosh, with remarks like that, I should run for office again. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Dave back there, you're the guy who put this whole thing together, you and your committee. Thank you for doing all of the hard work here. We do appreciate it. When Dave asked me to speak, I said, oh, no problem. My 4-hour speech is ready on a moment's notice. So I'll begin now. How about that Southwest Rotary Brass? They are terrific. I don't know how Mary Brindle has the time. She's on the Edina City Council. She does this. She is one of the leaders of the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon program that has just been established. Thank you, Mary. You're good. Appreciate you. Armistice Day, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. That's when it was signed. That was to commemorate the war that would end all wars. Didn't work out so well, unfortunately. Because if we look throughout history, every single civilization in the history of mankind had been conquered by somebody else. When you are a nation and you have something, land, money, food, whatever it might be, that some other nation wants, they take it away from you. And that's what's happened throughout history. When they built castles, they built walls around the castle so the person from the castle next door wouldn't take your castle away from you. We have had to have national defense throughout history. Wars are terrible things, and we hope always to avoid war, but I've always learned that having a strong national defense will, number one, allow your leader to negotiate from a position of strength, and number two, if you do have a war, which would be the decision of our elected leaders, the military is supposed to try to win it as quickly, as decisively as possible. It's not supposed to be a fair fight. We're not trying to win 50-49 in overtime. We want to win 99-0. And that is what would help prevent wars. The best war we ever had was the Cold War. The Cold War with Russia. I would drive up to an Air Force base, and the sign would say, "Welcome to Ellsworth Air Force Base," or "Welcome to Minot Air Force Base." Peace is our profession. And I knew that behind that gate was enough nuclear weapons to blow up half of the world. But because we were strong, we never had to use them. We won the Cold War without firing a shot. That's what happens when you have a strong national defense. What we've seen over the years, changes in our weapon systems. We've gone from bows and arrows to guns to airplanes, and now we're seeing us move into the realm of unmanned airplanes, they call them drones, into cyber command. Some of our best and brightest people now are joining cyber command. And I was just out a 3 weeks ago for the commissioning of the USS Minnesota nuclear submarine in Norfolk, Virginia. It's a submarine that can be underwater for 3 or 4 months at a time. The expected life expectancy of a nuclear submarine like that would be 30 or 40 or 50 years. I asked them how often they have to refuel this thing. They said never. Never. You can stay underwater as long as you want, as long as you have food. They make their own oxygen, they make their own water. God bless the men who are on those submarines. I was in it for an hour and a half and I was ready to get out. We've seen a lot of changes in the people who are defending our nation, from when I started to today. We have a much smaller force than we've ever had before, and that's because we have high technology weapon systems, so we don't need nearly as many people. When I was first commissioned through ROTC at the University of Minnesota, women were not allowed in ROTC. They were not allowed at the Air Force Academy or West Point or Annapolis. Today, 20% of our force is female. And this last weekend, I was at the Air Force Academy for some meetings. And I was meeting with the new superintendent of the Air Force Academy, General Michelle Johnson. Whoever would have thought that? She was the cadet commander in the second class that allowed women. She was a Rhodes Scholar. And she is incredible. I think she will one day be the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. What changes we are seeing. Another big difference. People used to be all active duty. And people in the reserve and the guard were called weekend warriors. Good people using outdated equipment. Maybe if we had a national emergency, we could use them a little bit. Today, if you were to ask any general or any admiral in the military if we can provide national defense without our guard and reserve, they would say absolutely not. 40% of our national defense is guard and reserve. And in Minnesota, you have 18,500 guard and reserve members, men and women. When I look at presidents since Harry Truman, since World War II, 8 out of 8 presidents were military officers. However, of the last 3 presidents, only 1 of the 3 served in the military. It's another big change. Congress and the Senate used to be 75% military people. Today, it's under 20%. That's another big change. But one thing has not changed. One thing has not changed. Every single person who has ever served in our military, in whatever capacity they served, is a hero. Every single one of them. And we can never forget that. Another thing hasn't changed. When these young men and women go off to war, it's miserable. It is miserable. You're leaving your families behind. You're jeopardizing your career. You're going into an area that might be hot. In fact, the people who were in Iraq or Afghanistan will tell you that when you were back home in Minnesota and you were complaining about how hot it was, when it hit 95 degrees and you were going from your air-conditioned car to your air-conditioned office to your air-conditioned home, and we were complaining about it, add 25 degrees to that, put on 60 pounds of armor, and that's what they're doing every day. Oh, did I forget to tell you? Every single person in our military today is a volunteer. Since we did away with the draft over 30 years ago, every single one is a volunteer. Only 25% of the young men and women in the age group of about 18 to 25 who would like to enlist in the military will be able to do so. Only 25%. 75% are disqualified. They're disqualified because they don't have a high school degree. They're disqualified because they didn't score high enough in their tests. They're disqualified because they're overweight. They're disqualified because they've been in trouble with the law. So only the top 25% are able to join the military, and they are all volunteers. Just imagine that. When we think about the sacrifices made, I look back at World War II. We could have lost that war. We darn near did lose that war. I think of Jimmy Doolittle. They just had a celebration 2 days ago. If you ask most high school students today, or most college students, they don't know who Jimmy Doolittle was. Jimmy Doolittle took on a very important mission in the beginning of World War II. The Emperor of Japan had said, "Our homeland will never be attacked." The American people were in grave danger. They were worried about losing the war. Our morale was in the pits. We needed something to boost our morale. So Jimmy Doolittle and 80 volunteers took on what would really be a suicide mission. They took off from an aircraft carrier outside of Japan, 80 people, knowing that that aircraft carrier wouldn't be there when they came back. Their job was to fly over Tokyo, drop bombs on Tokyo, knowing that it wouldn't do a whole lot of difference in the war, but knowing it would be devastating to the morale of the enemy and very helpful to the morale here. They all volunteered. All they could hope for is that they would run out of gas and crash land in China where they might be rescued. Do we have a lot of volunteers like that here today? That's what they did. They all volunteered. Every year, the survivors get together, and they have goblets, silver goblets, and there's a bottle of brandy that was bottled the year that Jimmy Doolittle was born. And every year, they would toast the remaining survivors, and when it got down to 2 people, then they would open up the bottle. Well, now they're all in their 90s. There are only 4 still left. And 2 days ago, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, 3 of those 4, one couldn't make it, 3 of those 4 toasted all of their other comrades. Just imagine, had we lost that war, we would not be here today. And we could have lost that war. I think about Normandy Beach during World War II, where tens of thousands of 18, 19, 20-year-old kids charged up on a beach, being mowed down by machine guns, and they just kept on charging until we could win that. Tens of thousands were killed. Kids. Just think about that. My dad was a World War II bomber pilot. He flew B-17s from England over Germany. He wasn't a warrior. He was an accounting student at the University of Minnesota. But he said, my country needed me, and he flew 25 combat missions as a pilot. One of those missions, 17 planes took off, 9 of them came home. Each mission, they would lose 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 airplanes. Just think about that. He was 20 years old. He was one of the lucky ones. He flew 25 combat missions. They said, you're a hero. They gave him a medal, and they sent him back home. Every one of them were heroes. I was very proud of my dad. He was very proud of me. But I never did say, thank you. I wish I had. But today we have some World War II veterans with us. And I'd like our World War II veterans to please stand up. Thank you. Thank you. You saved our nation. Thank you. We can never say that enough. Then we have people who fought in Korea, who fought in Vietnam. Those wars were controversial wars. Remember, every war that we fight is a decision. It's a political decision made by the people who we elect. The generals and the admirals don't start wars. It's the elected people who make those decisions, what's best for our nation. When I entered the Air Force right out of college, we were told not to wear our uniforms back home because it was controversial, because there were a lot of people who didn't approve of that particular war, and they took it out on the people who were in the military. When they came home, there was no thank you. No thank you at all. We have to make up for that. And today, we have all volunteers who are going to Iraq and Afghanistan in miserably hot conditions. 5,000 of them have given their lives. Over 50,000 of them have been injured so badly that they're missing an arm, or both arms, or a leg, or both legs. Or they've suffered traumatic brain injury from which they will never recover. And all of them who served were away from their families for a year or longer. And all of them were risking their lives. Did I forget to mention they're all volunteers? All volunteers. So how do we thank these people? How do we thank our World War II veterans who saved our nation? How do we thank our Korea and Vietnam veterans? How do we thank the people who are fighting the war on terror? Well, there are a lot of ways. One of the best ways is what we're doing right now. A program like this. We are thanking our veterans. We cannot thank them enough. So what else can we do? Well, I was at the football game Saturday. We beat Penn State. Great game, great game. Love it, love it. It was Military Appreciation Day. We arranged for a flyover. The band did a terrific halftime show. Probably not as good as your band, Mary, but they were good. They played all of the service songs, just as you did. They had intricate formations. I was out there with them in the morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning when they were practicing to make sure they were perfect. And they had great formations. When they did the Navy, it was a ship that was moving along. The Army had a big tank. The Air Force had an airplane. It was great. And all of the people in the stands who were in those services, as you did today, stood proudly. That's a way to say thank you. Because the people there applauded, they stood, and they got a better cheer than the Gophers in some cases. That's how it should be. Because we wouldn't be having football games had it not been for these veterans. Veterans, today, if you go to Applebee's, McCormick and Schmick, dozens of other restaurants, you can get a free meal. If you go to Starbucks, you can get a free coffee. Every day of the year, if you go to Lowe's or to Home Depot, you get a 10% discount. There are dozens and dozens of restaurants giving a free meal today to all veterans. God bless them. That's what we need to do, is to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And that is what they're trying to do. We have monuments. Eden Prairie, Richfield have beautiful monuments for the veterans. Edina has designed one. It's an eagle. It's going to be beautiful to recognize the 32 Edina residents who have given their lives in all of our wars. They're raising money for that, and that will be built in a couple of years. The University of Minnesota, their new football stadium. There's a wall, 120 feet wide, 16 feet high. In the front, on the outside of the stadium, carved into the stone, it says, "Duty, Honor, Country." On the inside, it says, "Minnesota Veterans," carved in stone, "Thank you for our freedoms." That's a way to say thank you. In Washington, D.C., we have monuments for World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. And that means a great deal for people to go there, to trace their hand on a comrade's life, somebody who died during Vietnam. And a lot of our World War II people can't make it to that memorial. And yet it means so much to them. And so they've started a new organization called Honor Flight. And Honor Flight raises money, charters airplanes, and takes groups of World War II veterans to Washington, D.C. for the day so they can see their monument. That means a great deal. And we do that from Minnesota. We have organizations in Minnesota. The Minnesota Military Appreciation Fund. It's one where we've raised several $1 million. It all started when Gene Sitt called me. Gene Sitt was an Edina resident. He was from China. His sons have all been in the military. He came from China and he said, I love this country. And he was very successful starting a financial institution. And he said, Denny, I'd like to raise several $1 million so we can give a letter of appreciation and a check to all of the young men and women who have served after 9/11. And I said, well, yeah, I'd like to do that too, but that's not easy to raise all that money. He said, well, here's the first $1 million. I said, now it's easier. We're at $16 million. Right now we've given 14,000 grants in the state of Minnesota. A letter of appreciation and a check for anywhere from $500 up to $10,000, depending on if the person's been injured, they get a larger check. When I present those checks sometimes, we'll do it sometimes at a Timberwolves game. And Chris Wright, who's the president of the Timberwolves and is a good friend, he said, I love that program, Denny. When you go down on the floor and hand out 3 or 4 checks, and he said, the people get a bigger ovation. And he said, this is a problem, a bigger ovation than the people on our team. And I said, well, that's because they're better than the people on your team. We're the only state in America doing this. We've had Tom Brokaw, John McCain, Tom Friedman, Vince Flynn have come here for banquets to raise money and to thank our people in the military. We have the Minnesota Military Family Foundation. That was started by Bill Popp. And that's where a family that has a financial issue because a husband or wife is serving in the military isn't making as much money as they were in their civilian job. Or somehow they need financial assistance. I'll give you one that I just voted on last week. Young lady called and she said, my husband is in Afghanistan. He's a carpenter. He normally makes $60,000 a year. Right now he's making $35,000 a year. The car broke. We need $1,200 to fix the car, and I don't have it. That night, she had a check for $1,200. Somebody gave it to her, no papers to sign. Thank you for being a military family. Thank you to your spouse for serving in the military. No other state in America is doing that. When you see a license plate out in the parking lot that says, support our troops, it's a red, white, and blue license plate with an eagle on it. You pay an extra $40 or so each year. That's where the money comes from to support that program along with normal donations. We have the the Employer Supportive Garden Reserve. It's a program I chaired for 7 years. We have about 150 volunteers. Many of them are attorneys, judges, and they help the young men and women retain their jobs and get better jobs, protect their employment while they're defending our country. Those are the kinds of things that we're doing and the kinds of ways that we can say thank you. But there's only one way that really, really does the job. Every single person you know who has served our nation, now or in the past, they just want to know that we appreciate what they did for us. And I just wish I had told my dad what I will tell every one of you. Thank you.
General, thank you for your remarks, and I don't think it's missed on anyone in this room that you are a hero too, and we are proud to call you a Minnesotan, and thank you for your service. As a token of our gratitude for sharing your thoughts today, we would like to officially thank you through Rotary service. Eradicating polio is the #1 priority of the Rotary Foundation and Rotary's gift to the world. We call this Polio Plus. In appreciation for your presentation today, the Southwest Metro Rotary Clubs will make a gift to the Polio Plus in your honor.
Thank you.
Thank you again, General Schulstead. You're a 40-year season ticket holder, 40-plus season ticket holder for the Gophers?
45 years.
And maybe we'll get you a trip to the Rose Bowl in your lifetime, sir. That's an optimist right over there. In closing the program today, I'd like to recognize and thank those who've made this event so special for all of us. Thanks to Diane Kirby for the program introduction. To the Southwest Metro Rotary Brass and their director, Mary Brindle, for leading us in the national anthem and providing such outstanding music. The Bloomington VFW for today's honor guard. Tim Murphy for leading us in the pledge. Reverend Dr. Arthur Rauner Jr. for the invocation. Thank you, Reverend. Mayor Jean Winstead for your thoughtful introduction of General Schulstead. And to Dave, where are you, Dave? For your planning of this event today. Thank you so much. I'd also like to recognize the president-elect from the 8 Southwest Metro Rotary Clubs for their contributions to organizing this meeting. Could you please stand and be recognized? Please join me in a round of applause and thank them all for coordinating this wonderful event today. Finally, thanks to all of you for attending the 2013 Southwest Metro Rotary Veterans Day Luncheon. Please remember to acknowledge all those who have served and are continuing to serve our country. They make incredible sacrifices, and we need to mention too, their families make incredible sacrifices as well as on our behalf. So thank you today, and thank you all year for your service. Thank you for coming today.